If you've ever struggled to get your loved one to take their medications, to take a bath, or to even eat, you know how frustrating that can be. Hi, I'm Billy Miranda. I am a caregiver, a licensed therapist, and welcome to the Carer's Corner. There are two main things that we need to use in order to get through this moment. Patience, of course, and strategy. It's important to know how to handle defiant behavior in a practical approach that gets us as caregivers what we need done, and also for our care recipient, for our loved one, to get what they need done as well, in a manner where each of us can, keep our heads on our shoulders. For those who have dementia, one of the reasons that they can, or several of the reasons that they can actually lose their ability to get to do what they need to do, or there's more defiant behavior, is dementia not only impacts your memory, it can also impact your reasoning and your awareness of needs. As an example, with my mother, when she's needing to take her medications, there have been times when we have a medication time. Typically it's after breakfast, we have a routine. There have been times where she flat out didn't want to eat, and since those things are paired, the medication wasn't taken either. She was just in a place in her mind where she did not want to either eat or take her medication. So for me, it became, that initial scary moment, like, oh my God, she really needs to take her meds, she needs to eat, she has diabetes. And so, all these things kind of come into my mind as a caregiver, and panic starts to set in. And then there have been times, sadly, unfortunately, where I took it in a way where I then started, you have to do this, you have to do this. This is your health. And that's just adds to more pushback. It isn't really the solution. So that's where the strategy comes in, along with the patience. So the patience is, okay, let's meet her where she's at. She's not willing to take it right now. Can't force feed her, can't force her to take her medications. What are we gonna do? Well, let's take a step back. And that's what I did. I took a step back. Okay, you're not gonna take it now. Let me just take a step back and walk away. 9 times out of 10, when I present her with her food and she doesn't want to eat, or following up with her medication, what occurs is she will eventually come out in a couple of minutes, or even if I just go in and remind her and say, hey, breakfast is ready or lunch is ready, and then she'll say, oh, okay, and it was as if nothing really happened. But it doesn't always happen in that way, where it's so easy. So what do we do then? Another strategic point that we can use is, beyond just the waiting, we can also just approach it in a different way in how we can explain it. I've used, in a patient manner, phrases like, hey, it's really important that you do this. Aren't you hungry? Or I made your favorite meal. Or when it comes to the medication, you really need to take your medication. Of course, controlling my tone so I don't sound like I'm this frantic person just trying to get things done. Me in the back of my mind being scared that she's gonna have to take a hospital trip, because that's the thought that kind of comes out there. So I'll approach her in a way where I'm saying, hey, it's really important that we take our medication, so we're caring for ourselves, because we want to be able to enjoy ourselves and the rest of our day, right? Sometimes that works. As a caregiver, it's important to use strategy and just brainstorm different ways in which we can get our care recipients to do the things that need to get done. And ultimately, if, say, there's pushback that, all right, this is just not going to happen and I'm throwing in the towel, be willing to accept that it can be okay to miss maybe one meal. It can be okay to miss one dose of medication. It's not the end of the world. Try to accept that. If it's an ongoing problem, then that would be something to address at that time. But in that moment, try to get out of your head, because that's really your worst enemy. Those thoughts that are coming, oh, this has to happen, and if it doesn't, then it's gonna catastrophize into we're going to the hospital. And if it were to be an ongoing issue, it just might end up being in that way. But if it's a one-time deal, then likely it won't. Let's think of another reason why somebody might be defiant in their behavior. As an elderly person, loss of independence is a big thing. It doesn't necessarily isolate to those who have dementia. For anyone who's elderly or is just struggling with maybe an illness or chronic illness that impairs their ability to do things on their own that they used to do, it can be very frustrating for them. And that loss of autonomy can be really impactful for them. And that frustration can arise in different ways. So we see it as them being defiant, but what we don't usually see is that they're really going through some stuff themselves emotionally. They're dealing with this adjustment of a new way of living, of having to depend on somebody else where they normally or used to be able to do things on their own, and now they can't. So just imagine you putting yourself in their shoes. If you were no longer able to do things independently, then that might impact you and how you feel about the person or just the situation in general of how things are going. It can be incredibly frustrating. Another thing to think about is, especially in more advanced stages of dementia, where communication really isn't as clear and the use of words isn't as clear when it comes to expressing themselves in a way that is understandable. Maybe there's some type of pain or discomfort that they're getting. Maybe they're not feeling too great. Maybe they have a stomach ache, but they're not really able to express it. Maybe that's why they don't want to eat. So being patient in those moments where they can't express themselves in a way, but for you as a caregiver, it might be important to ask questions, because at that moment, maybe they're not thinking about wording what it is that they feel or able to word how they feel. But if you were to ask them certain questions like, oh, is your stomach feeling okay? Are you all right? Then they might be able to answer easier with a yes or a no. So how do we handle defiant behavior with compassion? When it comes to medication refusal, there are a few things we can do. One, stay calm and don't force it. Aggression usually makes matters worse. Two, look into different forms of medication. Maybe it's difficult to swallow. Look into alternatives like liquid forms of medication. Also, maybe think about changing the time of their medication. Maybe they don't like taking it at this certain time. Maybe there's a better time throughout the day in order to give them their medications. Maybe it's right when they wake up as opposed to during breakfast. Number three, use a method that they might accept. Maybe mention how important medication is for them and their health. And number four, you can always use distraction techniques. If you can't get them to take their medication, maybe use some sort of reward system. Say, hey, I have, a piece of candy or something that you can have after you take your meds. It turns into an incentive. And if defiant behavior is more in line of refusing to shower, maybe there's a fear that we need to identify. Is the water too hot or too cold? What can we do? Maybe we can adjust the water temperature for them before they get into the shower. Create a calming environment. Use soft lighting. Use their favorite music and put that into the bathroom. It might make them feel more comfortable when they go to take a shower. Make it a routine. Make it sound fun. Tone matters. When defiant behavior is geared towards eating issues, what can we think about? Maybe check for physical issues. Is there trouble swallowing? Is it a texture in the food? Is there dental pain? You can offer smaller, more frequent meals rather than larger meals 3 times a day. The breakfast, lunch, dinner. Maybe break it up into smaller meals 5 or 6 times a day. Make the food choices appealing. Use their favorites. Make it something that you know that they're going to enjoy. Let's talk a bit about the mindset shift when it comes to the defiant behavior from our loved one. Keep in mind, it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. It's their condition. Pick your battles. Like I mentioned before, sometimes it's not really the end of the world if they skip a meal. Stay flexible. Adapt to what works that day, not necessarily sticking to a rigid routine. Things can change day by day, mood by mood. We gotta roll with it. Flexibility matters. And seek support. It's important to look into community. What are outlets that you have? Seek professional help. Look into a community. Speak to a friend, a loved one, somebody that can really hear you out and your own struggles. So if you're dealing with defiance, remember, you're trying your best and your loved one is not doing this on purpose. So let me know, what's the toughest challenge for you? Leave a comment in the comment box below. I'd love to hear your experience. Thank you so much for tuning in, and if you liked the content of this video, don't forget to like the video, and if you're liking the series of videos that are going to be coming out, make sure to subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell for every time a video does come out. Thank you so much for your support and for watching.